The morning mist hung thick over the mountains of Gangwon province when Park Dae-ho felt the ground shake beneath his boots. He was checking the old mine entrance near the border when the tremor hit. It was different from the usual small earthquakes. That rattled this region. This one felt wrong somehow. Dae-ho had been a mining engineer for 10 years. He knew how the earth moved and spoke. This was not natural. The vibration came from above ground and traveled down through the rock layers. Something big had hit the mountain. He grabbed his helmet and mining tools from his truck. The government seismic monitors would detect this soon. If there was a landslide or cave-in, he needed to check it before the officials arrived with their paperwork and restrictions. The trail up the mountainside was steep and covered with fallen leaves. Dae-ho moved carefully through the forest. He had explored these hills since he was a boy. Every cave and tunnel was mapped in his mind. His grandfather had hidden in these same caves during the war many years ago. As he climbed higher, the trees showed signs of damage. Broken branches hung at odd angles. Scorch marks blackened some trunks. Whatever had happened here was violent and recent. The smell in the air was strange, too. It reminded him of burned metal mixed with something sweet. He could not identify. Then he saw it. A gash in the mountainside that had not been there yesterday. The rock face was split open like someone had taken a giant axe to it. But the edges of the split were too smooth, too clean, and they glowed with a faint blue light that made his eyes water. Dae-ho approached carefully. His mining helmet light revealed something impossible inside the crack. The walls were not made of stone. They curved and twisted like the inside of a seashell. The surface looked like polished bone, but felt warm to the touch. He squeezed through the opening and found himself in a chamber that should not exist. The space was large enough to hold a bus, but the walls curved up and came together at the top. Blue veins of light pulsed through the bone-like material. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. At the center of the chamber lay a figure. Dae-ho froze. His helmet light fell across something that made his brain struggle to understand what he was seeing. It looked like a person but was too tall and too thin. Leathery wings spread out from its back, covering most of the chamber floor. The wings were torn and bleeding a silver liquid. The creature's skin was pale gray and seemed to glow slightly in the darkness. Its face was human-like, but longer and more angular. Large ears twitched as his light hit them, but it was the breathing that convinced him this thing was alive. Slow and painful, but steady. Dae-ho took a step backward and his boot crunched on debris. The creature's eyes snapped open. They were huge and completely black, like a night sky without stars. The thing tried to sit up but collapsed again with a sound that was part gasp and part whistle. For a long moment they stared at each other. Dae-ho knew he should run. Every instinct told him to get out of this impossible place and call someone. But the creature was clearly hurt and afraid. Its black eyes held the same look he had seen in trapped animals. The creature made a soft clicking sound, then another. The clicks came faster and seemed to bounce off the walls. Dae-ho realized it was trying to communicate with him. He slowly removed his helmet and set it down so the light would not shine directly in the creature's eyes. Then he held up his hands to show he was not armed. The creature watched him carefully. When he made no threatening moves, it relaxed slightly. The clicking sounds became softer and more rhythmic, almost like a song. Dae-ho noticed his helmet radio was picking up the sounds. The frequency display showed patterns he had never seen before. The creature was using sound the same way bats did to see in the dark. He reached for his radio and adjusted the settings. When he found the right frequency, the clicks became clearer. He tried clicking his tongue in response. The creature's large ears perked up immediately. For the next hour, they exchanged simple sounds. Dae-ho learned that high clicks meant distress and low ones meant calm. The creature seemed to understand that he was trying to help. But there was a problem. The creature kept looking toward the opening where daylight was starting to filter in. Each time the light grew brighter, the creature moved further into the shadows. Its skin began to smoke slightly where the sunlight touched it. Deho realized this being could not survive in daylight. The sun was literally burning it. He grabbed his emergency tarp from his pack and hung it over the opening to block the light. The creature immediately relaxed and made grateful clicking sounds. As Deho worked to make the space darker, he noticed something else. The bone-like walls were part of a vehicle. This was not a cave at all, but some kind of ship that had crashed into the mountain. The creature was not from Earth. The radio on his belt crackled to life. Military frequencies were reporting unusual seismic activity in his area. Search teams would be dispatched within hours. Deho looked at the injured alien in the darkened chamber. He could leave now and report what he had found. The creature would become a government secret and probably end up in some underground laboratory. Or he could help. The creature looked at him with those deep black eyes and made soft clicking sounds. Somehow he understood it was asking for help. Not just for medical aid, but for protection from a world that would not understand. Deho made his choice. He clicked back in what he hoped was a reassuring pattern and began planning how to keep this being alive and hidden. The first step was getting it somewhere safer before the military arrived. But where could he hide a 2-meter-tall winged creature that could not tolerate sunlight? Then he remembered the old mining tunnels that connected to the cave system deeper in the mountain. His grandfather's wartime hiding places. Dark, cool, and far from prying eyes. He just had to figure out how to move an injured alien through kilometers of underground passages without killing either of them in the process. 3 days had passed since Deho first found the alien in the crashed ship. He had managed to move her deeper into the cave system using an old mining cart and a lot of careful planning. The creature now rested in a natural chamber far from any surface opening. Deho sat in the darkness listening to the soft clicking sounds the alien made. He had brought his mining sonar equipment down into the caves. The machine could send out sound waves and map underground spaces. He wondered if he could use it to talk with the creature. The alien had grown stronger since moving away from the sunlight. Her wings had stopped bleeding silver liquid, and the torn sections were healing with strange speed. But she remained very thin and weak. She needed food but would not eat anything he brought her. When Deho turned on the sonar equipment, the alien immediately became alert. Her large black eyes focused on the machine and her ears twitched rapidly. She began making more complex clicking patterns that seemed to respond to the sonar pulses. He adjusted the frequency settings and suddenly heard something amazing. The clicks were not random sounds. They formed patterns like words. The alien was speaking to him through echolocation, just like dolphins and whales did in the ocean. Deho spent hours learning to understand the basic patterns. Low, slow clicks meant calm or agreement. Fast, high clicks showed fear or distress. Medium clicks in groups seemed to be questions. It was like learning a new language made entirely of sounds. The breakthrough came when the alien began drawing shapes in the cave dirt with her long fingers. She would draw something, then make specific clicking sounds. Deho realized she was teaching him words by showing him pictures. She drew a circle with rays coming from it and made harsh clicking sounds that hurt his ears. The sun. She was telling him about the sun and why it caused her pain. Then she drew a star map in the dirt. Dozens of small dots connected by lines. She pointed to one star and made soft clicking sounds. Her home. Then she pointed to another star and clicked in a sad pattern. That star was dark now. Dead. Over the next few hours, the alien told him an incredible story using pictures and sounds. Her people were called the Niktari. They lived on a world that circled a dying star. When their sun began to fade and cool, their planet became too cold to support life. The Niktari built ships to search for new worlds where they could live. She had been sent ahead as a scout to find safe places for her people to settle. But Earth's bright sun was too strong for her species. The solar radiation had damaged her ship and caused the crash. Deho learned that the Niktari were not like humans. They had evolved in dim caves and shadowy forests. Their large eyes could see in almost complete darkness. Their wings let them fly through vast underground spaces. Most importantly, they communicated through echolocation because their world had been very quiet. The alien, whose name sounded like a series of musical clicks that Deho could not pronounce, showed him more star maps. Other Niktari ships were coming to Earth, dozens of them carrying thousands of refugees from their dying world. They would arrive in about 6 months, but the Niktari did not know about Earth's bright sun. They expected to find a world more like their own, with dim light and deep caves. If they tried to land on the surface, they would be badly burned, just like she had been. Deho realized he was looking at a disaster waiting to happen. When the Niktari ships arrived, Earth's governments would see them as invaders. The military would attack. The aliens would be killed by sunlight even if they survived the weapons. It would be a tragedy for both species. The alien seemed to understand his concern. She made questioning clicks while pointing at him then at the cave ceiling. She was asking if humans could help her people. That evening, Deho hiked back to his truck deep in thought. He needed help but could not tell anyone about the alien without putting her in danger. The military was still searching the mountains but had not found the deeper caves yet. He decided to call his sister, Kim So-young, who worked as a doctor in Seoul. If anyone would believe his story and know how to help an injured alien, it would be her. The phone call was difficult. So-young thought he was joking at first. Then she became worried that he had hit his head in a mining accident. But when he described the alien's injuries and strange biology, she became curious. 2 days later, So-young arrived with a backpack full of medical supplies. She was a small, serious woman who had always been smarter than Deho. She insisted on seeing proof before she would help. The hike down to the deep cave took over an hour. So-young complained about the darkness and the rough path. But when they reached the chamber where the alien waited, her complaints stopped immediately. The Niktari female was hanging upside down from the cave ceiling like a giant bat. Her wings were wrapped around her body, and she was making soft, sleeping sounds. When their flashlight beam hit her, she opened those huge black eyes and dropped gracefully to the cave floor. So-young stared in amazement as the alien approached them slowly. The creature was even more impressive standing upright. She was over 2 meters tall with long arms and legs. Her gray skin had patterns of darker lines that seemed to shift in the light. Despite her strange appearance, there was something elegant and intelligent about her. The alien made gentle clicking sounds and bowed her head towards So-young. It was clearly a greeting gesture. So-young looked at her brother with wide eyes. "This is really happening," she whispered. Deho nodded, "and we are the only ones who can help them." The alien seemed to understand they were discussing her situation. She began drawing new pictures in the dirt. Ships falling from the sky, Niktari dying in sunlight, human soldiers with weapons. But then, she drew something else. Humans and Niktari working together underground. Her people bringing knowledge and technology. Humans providing safe places to live away from the deadly sun. She looked at both humans with hope in her dark eyes and made questioning clicks. So-young checked the alien's injuries while Deho translated the clicking language he had learned. The Niktari was healing well, but would need better food and medical care to regain her full strength. More importantly, she needed to contact her people and warn them about Earth's sun before they arrived. But first they needed to figure out how to hide an entire alien species in a world that did not know they existed. 2 weeks after So-young first met the Niktari woman, Deho stood at the entrance to the largest cave system in the mountain range. He held detailed maps and engineering plans that had taken him days to create. The alien, who had taught them to call her Nara, needed a real home. not just a hiding place. Nara had grown stronger with So Young's medical care and proper food. She could now fly short distances through the cave tunnels. But more importantly, she had shared amazing knowledge about her people's technology. The Niktari built using living materials that grew and shaped themselves. Their cities were grown, not constructed. Daeho knew he could not grow an alien city, but he could build something using human engineering skills. The cave system extended for kilometers underground with multiple levels and natural water sources. It was perfect for creating a hidden refuge. But he needed help. Real help from people who knew construction and engineering. The first person he approached was Choi Min-ho, who supervised the local construction crews. Min-ho was a practical man who had worked with Daeho on several mining projects. He was also someone who could keep secrets. When Daeho explained what he needed without mentioning aliens, Min-ho was interested. An underground emergency shelter. Sounded like a good idea given the political tensions near the border. But when Daeho showed him the cave system and the strange blue glowing materials from Nara's ship, Min-ho became suspicious. The truth came out during their third planning meeting. Daeho brought Min-ho deep into the caves to meet Nara herself. The big construction foreman took one look at the tall gray alien with her massive wings and sat down heavily on a rock. This explains the weird building requirements, he said after. Several minutes of staring, Nara approached Min-ho slowly and made soft clicking sounds. She had learned that humans were less afraid when she moved carefully. She showed him the biomaterials from her ship that could strengthen human concrete and steel. She demonstrated how Niktari building techniques could create structures that would last for centuries. Min-ho was a builder at heart. When he saw what was possible, combining human engineering with alien knowledge, his fear turned to excitement. Within hours, he was sketching plans for chambers designed for flying creatures and workshops for biotechnology. The next recruit was Yeon Ha-na, who designed renewable energy systems. Ha-na was brilliant, but also very curious about unusual engineering problems. When Daeho told her about building a completely self-sufficient underground facility, she immediately wanted to see the plans. Ha-na figured out the alien connection. Before meeting Nara, the power requirements and environmental specifications were too strange for human occupants. But instead of being frightened, she was fascinated. An entirely different approach to technology and energy use. When Ha-na met Nara in the caves, the two females immediately connected. Ha-na asked technical questions through Daeho's translation, while Nara shared holographic displays from her ship's computers. Soon, they were working together to design power systems that used geothermal energy and bioluminescent lighting. The building project began in secret, using equipment borrowed from various construction sites. Min-ho arranged for supplies to disappear from inventory records. Ha-na installed solar collectors disguised as weather monitoring stations. Daeho used his mining connections to access heavy machinery during night shifts. The work was incredibly difficult. They had to move tons of equipment through narrow cave passages. Every piece of machinery had to be lowered through hidden entrance shafts. The construction noise had to be muffled to avoid detection by military patrols. But slowly, the underground refuge took shape. The main chamber was carved from solid rock and reinforced with Niktari biomaterials. Flying spaces were created with tall ceilings and smooth walls. Living quarters were designed for beings who slept hanging upside down. Nara worked alongside the humans, despite her injuries. Her knowledge of biotechnology solved problems that would have taken weeks to figure out. She showed them how to create air circulation systems using living organisms, how to purify water with bacterial colonies, how to grow food in complete darkness using special nutrients. The alien also shared more about her people during the long construction days. The Niktari were peaceful, but very advanced. They had traveled between stars for thousands of years. They understood sciences that humans had not yet discovered. But they had never encountered a species like humans before. Most intelligent races the Niktari had met were either completely peaceful or completely aggressive. Humans seemed to be both at the same time. They would fight terrible wars, but also sacrifice themselves to help strangers. This made humans very unpredictable, but also very interesting. 3 months into the project, a new problem developed. Lee Taemin, who handled the computer systems for the project, had been asking too many questions. Daeho trusted his old friend, but had not told him about Nara. Taemin knew something unusual was happening, but not what. The situation came to a head when Taemin followed one of the supply runs and discovered the cave entrance. He confronted Daeho, demanding to know what kind of illegal operation was being run in the mountains. Daeho had no choice but to bring him to meet Nara. Taemin's reaction was stronger than the others. He actually fainted when the tall alien stepped out of the shadows. When he recovered, he spent an hour asking questions about space travel and alien technology. But there was a bigger problem brewing. Colonel Park Jae-woo, who commanded the local military district, had noticed the unusual activity in the mountains. Equipment disappearing from construction sites, strange power signatures from the hills, unauthorized movement of heavy machinery. Colonel was also Daeho's uncle, though they had not spoken in years after a family argument. Jae-woo was a thorough man who investigated everything carefully. He was getting close to discovering the truth. Meanwhile, Nara was experiencing something she called molting. Her skin became very sensitive, and her wings stopped working properly. She explained that Niktari went through this process every few years as they grew, but it left her completely helpless for several weeks. The timing could not be worse. The underground refuge was nearly complete, but Nara could not fly or defend herself. The military investigation was intensifying, and worst of all, they had received a message through Nara's equipment. The Niktari fleet had encountered problems in space and would arrive at Earth 2 months early. They were already close enough to be detected by human telescopes. Daeho stood in the main chamber of the nearly finished refuge, surrounded by his human friends and their alien partner. They had built something amazing together, a place where 2 different species could live and work side by side. But now they had to figure out how to protect it from a world that was not ready to learn about visitors from the stars, X. The underground refuge was finally complete after 4 months of secret construction. Daeho walked through the main tunnel system, checking every detail one last time. The complex now stretched for 3 kilometers through the mountain, with multiple levels connected by smooth passages wide enough for flying. The main living area was a natural cavern, enlarged and shaped by human engineering. Bioluminescent panels created by Nara provided soft blue-green light that would not hurt Niktari eyes. The air circulation system used both human fans and living organisms that cleaned and freshened the atmosphere. Nara had moved into her new home 2 weeks ago when her molting period ended. The change in her health was immediate and dramatic. Her skin regained its natural gray color with shifting dark patterns. Her wings healed completely, and she could fly through the tunnel system with incredible speed and grace. The workshop areas were perhaps the most impressive part of the refuge. Here, Nara worked with biomaterials from her crashed ship to create tools and equipment that seemed like magic to the humans. Living computers that grew their own circuits, metal that could change shape when touched, lighting systems that produced different colors for different moods. But the most important addition was the communication center. Using parts from her ship and human radio equipment, Nara had built a system that could send messages across space. She had been trying to contact the incoming Niktari fleet to warn them about Earth's dangers. 3 days ago, she had finally succeeded. The response was both good news and terrible news. The Niktari fleet commander was grateful for the warning about Earth's sun. But the fleet could not change course now. They were too close to Earth and running out of fuel. Worse, the fleet was larger than originally planned. The dying of their home star had happened faster than expected. Instead of dozens of ships carrying thousands of refugees, there were now over 100 ships with nearly 500,000 Niktari seeking new homes. Dae-ho shared this news with his team during their weekly planning meeting in the Refuge. Min-ho whistled low when he heard the numbers. Hana began calculating power and resource requirements. Taemin started planning computer networks for a much larger population, but their planning was interrupted by an emergency alert from their surface monitoring systems. Military vehicles were surrounding the mountain. Colonel Park had finally found them. Nara immediately took flight, heading for the deeper emergency tunnels. Her enhanced hearing had detected the approaching forces before the electronic sensors. But instead of just hiding, she made an unexpected choice. She returned to the main chamber and began putting on a device she had built from her ship's components. It looked like a collar, but projected a field that would let her survive in sunlight for a short time. She was preparing to go to the surface. Dae-ho tried to stop her, but Nara made firm clicking sounds that meant she had decided. She would not let the humans who had helped her be arrested or hurt because of her presence. If revealing herself could protect them, she would take that risk. The confrontation happened at the main cave entrance just as the sun was setting. Colonel Park had brought a full squad of soldiers, but also came forward himself to meet his nephew. The two men faced each other across 20 meters of rocky ground. "I know you are hiding something important in these caves," Jae-woo said. "The equipment thefts, the power usage, the strange materials my sensors detected. What are you building up?" "Here, Dae-ho." Before Dae-ho could answer, Nara emerged from the cave entrance. Even in the dim evening light, her appearance was shocking. 2.5 meters tall, with wings that spread wider than a car. Gray skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Those huge black eyes that reflected the setting sun. The soldiers raised their weapons immediately, but Colonel Park held up his hand to stop them. He stared at Nara for a long moment, then slowly removed his helmet and set it on the ground. "You built this place for her," he said. It was not a question. Dae-ho moved to stand between the soldiers and Nara. "She needs protection from sunlight. Her people are refugees from a dying world. They are not invaders." Nara stepped forward and made soft clicking sounds. Then she spoke in carefully practiced Korean words that Dae-ho had taught her. "We come in peace. We need help. Your nephew, good human. Build safe home for my people." Her voice was musical but strange. The words were hard for her to pronounce. But the meaning was clear. Colonel Park looked from his nephew to the alien and back again. Dae-ho saw something change in his uncle's expression. The military suspicion was being replaced by curiosity, and perhaps understanding. "How many of your people are coming?" the colonel asked. Nara held up her long fingers, showing numbers. "Many ships. Many Niktari. Need places to live away from sun." Colonel Park nodded slowly. Then he made a decision that surprised everyone, including his own soldiers. He ordered his men to lower their weapons and establish a perimeter to keep other people away from the caves. "We need to talk," he said to Dae-ho and Nara. "All of us together. But first, I need to see what you have built down there." The tour of the underground refuge took 2 hours. Colonel Park asked detailed questions about the construction methods and the biotechnology. He was particularly interested in the communication, systems, and the defensive capabilities. Nara demonstrated some of her people's technology, including the living materials and the biological computers. She showed him star charts displaying the route her people had taken from their dying homeworld. She played recordings of Niktari music that sounded like whale songs mixed with wind chimes. At the end of the tour, Colonel Park sat in the main chamber surrounded by the soft blue glow of bioluminescent panels. The alien and his nephew waited for his decision. "This will have to be reported to the government," he said finally. "When those ships arrive in space, Earth will detect them anyway. Better to be prepared than surprised." He looked at Nara directly. "Your people will need more than one hiding place. If 500,000 refugees are coming, we will need dozens of facilities like this one." Nara made hopeful clicking sounds and bowed her head gratefully. Colonel Park turned to Deho. "You did good work here, nephew." Grandfather would be proud. He helped refugees during the war, too. 3 days later, the first official meeting took place in the underground refuge. Government officials from Seoul arrived by military helicopter. Scientists and engineers came to study the alien technology. Diplomats prepared for humanity's first contact with another intelligent species. But the most important visitor was President Kim Soo-jin herself. She came not with a large entourage, but with just 2 advisors. She wanted to see this alien refugee and the sanctuary built for her with her own eyes. The meeting between the president and Nara was historic, but also very simple. 2 females from different worlds sitting in a cave lit by alien bioluminescence, discussing how their peoples could help each other. Nara showed the president star charts of the approaching fleet. She explained the desperate situation of her people and their need for dark places to live. She demonstrated Nyctary biotechnology and how it could benefit Earth. President Kim listened carefully, then asked practical questions. How much space would the refugees need? What resources would they require? What could they offer in return for sanctuary? The answers were encouraging. The Nyctary were experts in biological sciences that could help with Earth's environmental problems. They had medical knowledge that could cure human diseases. Their building techniques could create structures that would last for thousands of years. Most importantly, they did not want to live on Earth's surface. They preferred underground spaces that humans rarely used. There would be little competition for territory. As the meeting ended, President Kim made a decision that would change both worlds forever. South Korea will offer sanctuary to the Nyctary refugees, she announced. We will build underground cities where they can live safely. In return, they will share their knowledge and technology to help solve Earth's problems. It was the beginning of a new age for both species. But first they had to prepare for the arrival of 500,000 aliens who would need homes built in the darkness beneath the Earth. 6 weeks after the first government meeting, the Nyctary fleet appeared in Earth's sky. Daeho stood on the surface outside the cave entrance, watching dozens of ships pass overhead like slow-moving stars. Each vessel was enormous and glowed with the same blue light as Nara's crashed ship. The world had changed dramatically since President Kim's decision to offer sanctuary. Construction crews worked around the clock expanding cave systems across South Korea. International teams of engineers studied Nyctary biotechnology. Military forces prepared for peaceful contact rather than invasion. But not everyone on Earth was happy about the alien arrival. Many countries protested South Korea's unilateral decision to welcome the refugees. Some religious groups called the Nyctary demons from space. Several nations moved military forces toward the Korean peninsula, claiming they needed to protect their interests. Daeho received regular updates on the global situation through Colonel Park, who had become the military liaison for the Nyctary integration project. The colonel visited the original refuge frequently to consult with Nara about her people's needs and capabilities. The relationship between uncle and nephew had healed during the crisis. Colonel Park admitted he had always respected Daeho's determination and engineering skills. Seeing the underground refuge had reminded him of their grandfather, who had hidden refugees during the war, despite great personal risk. Now both men worked together, planning the most complex construction project in human history. Hundreds of underground cities would need to be built across 6 continents. The Nyctary had agreed to share their biotechnology with all Earth nations in exchange for safe places to live. Nara had become much more than just a refugee. She now served as the primary translator and cultural advisor for first contact protocols. Her English had improved rapidly, and she could communicate complex ideas without needing Daeho to interpret clicking sounds. She spent most of her time in video, conferences with world leaders explaining Nyctary biology and social structure. The refugee fleet was organized into family groups that preferred to stay together. Each ship carried specialists in different biotechnologies. The fleet commander was an elder female named Keth Ara, who had led the evacuation from their dying homeworld. The landing of the first Nyktari ship was scheduled for the area around the original refuge. This location had been chosen because it offered immediate underground shelter and was far from major population centers. If something went wrong, the impact would be limited. But 3 days before the planned landing, everything changed. Long-range sensors detected additional ships approaching Earth from a different direction. These were not Nyktari vessels. They were something else entirely. The emergency meeting in the underground refuge included President Kim, Colonel Park, military advisors, and scientific experts. Nara participated by holographic projection from the fleet command ship that had taken orbit around Earth. The new arrivals are Zeth Ani, Nara explained. They are hunters who follow refugee fleets across space. They capture fleeing populations and sell them as slaves to other species. The holographic display showed sleek predator ships built for speed and combat. They were smaller than Nyktari vessels but heavily armed. Intelligence reports suggested they carried boarding parties trained to capture aliens alive. How many ships? President Kim asked. Nara consulted with her fleet commander before answering. 30 hunter ships, maybe 3,000 Zeth Ani warriors. They will arrive in 2 days. The room fell silent as everyone calculated the implications. Earth's space defenses were primitive compared to alien technology. The Nyktari were refugees, not fighters. The planet faced its first interstellar war. Colonel Park spoke first. Our military satellites show the hunter ships are taking positions between Earth and the Nyktari fleet. They plan to attack the refugees before they can land. Can your people fight? Daeho asked Nara. We are not warriors, she replied sadly. Nyktari are builders and scientists. We have some defensive weapons, but not enough to win against dedicated hunters. President. Kim stood and walked to the holographic star chart showing ship positions. What do the hunters want? She asked. They want my people as slaves, Nara answered. Nyktari biotechnology is very valuable. We can grow living computers and biological machines that other species cannot create. The Zeth Ani will capture as many of us as possible, and if we try to protect your people, then they will capture humans too. You also have useful skills. The hunters sell entire populations to species that need workers. The meeting continued for hours as military leaders planned Earth's defense. Orbital weapons platforms were activated, fighter squadrons prepared for space combat. Ground-based missiles were programmed with targeting data. But everyone knew Earth's weapons were not designed for space warfare against advanced aliens. At best, they might damage a few hunter ships before being destroyed. Daeho had an idea that seemed crazy, but might work. What if we don't fight them in space, he suggested. What if we make them come down to us? His plan was simple and dangerous. The Nyktari fleet would continue with the planned landing, but instead of seeking safety, they would act as bait. When the hunter ships followed them into Earth's atmosphere, human forces could attack at close range where their weapons were more effective. The underground refugee system would serve as the battleground. Miles of tunnels and chambers where the hunters would lose their technological advantages. Places where human knowledge of the terrain would matter more than advanced weapons. Nara was skeptical. Zeth Ani are experienced fighters. They have captured many species before. Why should Earth be different? Because Daeho replied, we are not trying to win a space battle. We are trying to disappear. Your people know how to hide underground. Humans know how to fight in tunnels and caves. Together, we can make this planet too expensive for the hunters to profit from. The plan required perfect timing and unprecedented cooperation. Nyktari ships would land at dozens of locations simultaneously. As hunter ships followed them down, human forces would attack from hidden positions. The goal was not to destroy all the hunters, but to make capturing Earth's population more costly than profitable. President Kim approved the plan despite its risks. Orders went out to military commanders around the world. Construction crews worked frantically to prepare defensive positions in the underground cities. Civilians near landing sites were evacuated to secure locations. Nara returned to her fleet to coordinate with the Niktari commanders. She carried with her detailed maps of Earth's cave systems and underground defensive positions. For the first time in her people's history, they would fight alongside another species to protect their right to exist. The night before the battle, Daeho stood in the main chamber of the original Refuge. This place where he had first helped an injured alien had become the command center for humanity's first interstellar war. Nara appeared beside him, having flown down from her ship through the entrance tunnel. Her gray skin seemed to glow brighter in the bioluminescent lighting. Her huge black eyes reflected worry and determination. "Tomorrow will decide the future for both our peoples," she said in her musical voice. Daeho nodded. "Whatever happens, we face it together. That is what makes humans and Niktari different from hunters. We help each other instead of taking what we want by force." Nara made soft clicking sounds that he had learned meant agreement and affection. Then she spread her wings and flew back toward the surface to rejoin her fleet. In 12 hours, the first Niktari ships would land on Earth. The hunters would follow, and two species who had never met before would discover what they could accomplish when they refused to surrender their freedom. 5 years had passed since the Battle of the Underground Cities, as historians now called it. Daeho walked through the main corridor of New Seoul Underground, watching human and Niktari children play together in the bioluminescent gardens. The sound of laughter mixed with musical clicking filled the vast chamber. The battle itself had lasted only 3 days but changed both species forever. The Zethani hunters had expected easy prey but found themselves fighting a coordinated defense across multiple continents. Human tunnel warfare tactics combined with Niktari biotechnology had turned Earth's underground into a deadly maze for the invaders. The hunters had managed to capture only a few hundred individuals before retreating. The cost in damaged ships and lost warriors made Earth an unprofitable target. More importantly, word spread through the galaxy that humans and Niktari fought together as allies. Other species began to reconsider attacking either world. Now Daeho served as Earth's first director of xenological engineering. His job was overseeing the construction and maintenance of underground cities that housed over 400,000 Niktari refugees. The work had transformed from emergency shelter building into permanent city planning. The integration had not been easy. Cultural differences caused misunderstandings. Some humans feared the aliens despite their peaceful nature. Some Niktari found it difficult to trust surface dwellers after generations of living in caves. But gradually, the two species learned to work together. The benefits became obvious quickly. Niktari biotechnology revolutionized human medicine. Diseases that had plagued Earth for centuries were cured using biological treatments the aliens had developed. Cancer became as treatable as a common cold. Aging could be slowed dramatically using Niktari genetic therapies. Environmental problems that had seemed unsolvable were addressed with living systems. Air pollution was cleaned by engineered bacteria. Water contamination was filtered by biomechanical organisms. Climate change was being reversed, using Niktari solar collectors that converted excess heat into usable energy. Most dramatically, the underground cities had doubled Earth's habitable space. Vast networks of tunnels and chambers extended beneath major continents. Millions of humans chose to live underground, enjoying the stable temperatures and clean air. The population crisis that had worried scientists for decades was solved almost overnight, but the greatest change was in how both species thought about cooperation. Humans learned that helping others often brought unexpected benefits. Niktari discovered that some species could be trusted completely. The friendship between the two peoples had become a model studied by diplomatic services across the galaxy. Daeho entered the observation deck of New Seoul Underground, where he had arranged to meet Nara. She was now the Cultural Exchange Director for the Niktari Integration Council. Her title was impressive, but she remained the same thoughtful being he had first met in a crashed ship. Nara hung gracefully from the ceiling of the observation deck, her wings wrapped around her like a gray cloak. Below them stretched the largest underground city ever built, hundreds of levels connected by broad tunnels designed for both walking and flying. Gardens of bioluminescent plants created pools of colored light throughout the complex. The population displays showed current numbers: 2 million humans and 300,000 Niktari living and working together in this single city. Similar communities existed on every continent. Underground had become the preferred lifestyle for many people. "You look thoughtful," Nara said, dropping down to stand beside Dae-ho. Her English was now perfect, though she still preferred to add clicking sounds for emphasis. "I was remembering that first day when I found you in the crashed ship. Did you imagine it would lead to all this?" Nara made soft clicking sounds that meant amusement. "I thought I would die alone on a strange world. I never imagined your species would build homes for all my people." They walked together through the observation area, looking down at the city below. Human and Niktari engineers worked, side by side, designing new sections. Teachers from both species ran integrated schools. Medical researchers shared knowledge that benefited everyone. The communication center buzzed with activity as usual. Messages arrived daily from other worlds asking about Earth's integration success. Refugee species from across the galaxy wanted to know how two different civilizations had learned to live together peacefully. Several new alien groups had already been welcomed to Earth. The Kethori were plant-like beings who grew food in underground gardens. The Zekani were small creatures who excelled at maintaining biomechanical systems. Each species brought new knowledge and capabilities. But the most exciting development was the Deep Space Construction Project. Human engineering combined with alien biotechnology was building the first interstellar ships designed on Earth. These vessels would carry mixed crews to explore and help other worlds. Nara had volunteered to captain the first ship. Her experience as both refugee and integration leader made her perfect for diplomatic missions. Dae-ho would serve as chief engineer using skills developed building underground cities. The ship itself was a marvel of cooperative technology. Human, structural engineering provided the framework. Niktari biosystems created living components that could adapt and repair themselves. Other alien species contributed specialized knowledge for different systems. A soft chime announced an incoming priority message. Nara activated the holographic display showing a star chart with a new red marker. Another refugee fleet had been detected heading toward Earth. This time it was the Velmori whose ocean world was being poisoned by industrial pollution. The Velmori were aquatic creatures who breathed both water and air. They would need underwater cities rather than underground ones. But Earth's engineers had learned to adapt. Ocean floor settlements were already being planned using techniques developed for the underground cities. "Do you ever regret it?" Dae-ho asked as they watched the new refugee data. "Your decision to trust humans that first day." Nara spread her wings slightly and made the clicking pattern that meant deep contentment. "My people have a saying. The darkest caves often lead to the brightest chambers. Trusting humans led us out of darkness." She paused and looked directly at him with those huge, black eyes that no longer seemed alien but simply different. "But I think humans gained more than we did. You learned that your greatest strength is not your technology or weapons. It is your willingness to help others even when it costs you greatly." Dae-ho nodded, understanding the truth in her words. Earth had become known throughout the galaxy as the sanctuary world, the place where refugee species could find safety and new homes. It was a reputation that brought both opportunities and responsibilities. The observation deck filled with other workers ending their shifts. Human families walked alongside Niktari groups. Children of both species played together using games that combined running and flying. The casual integration that had seemed impossible 5 years ago was now completely natural. An announcement echoed through the city. The first interstellar ship built on Earth would launch next month. Its mission was to establish diplomatic contact with 12 species and offer assistance to 3 refugee fleets detected in nearby star systems. Nara and Daiho would leave Earth together to represent the cooperative spirit their 2 species had discovered. Other mixed crews would follow as more ships were completed. Humanity was no longer confined to one world, and the Niktari had found a new purpose exploring the galaxy. As they prepared to leave the observation deck, Nara made a gesture toward the vast underground city below them. "Your species has a gift," she said. "You do not just build structures to solve problems, you build hope for the future." Daiho smiled, remembering the desperate alien he had found in a crashed ship and the impossible task of hiding an entire refugee population. "We learned that from you. Sometimes the best light comes from working together in the darkness." They walked toward the main corridor, where transport platforms would carry them deeper into the city. Behind them, the lights of New Seoul Underground twinkled like stars, reflecting the new dawn of cooperation between species. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, as it always did. More refugees to house, more technologies to integrate, more worlds to explore. But humanity and their alien partners had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. No species had to face the darkness alone.